Okie doke. So welcome to this fun class, F.U.N class, on executive compensation at the MUNI. The MUNI stands for the Memorial University of Newfoundland Incorporated. It's the name I gave to the university until they clean up their act. And this survey was conducted in between mid-March and beginning of April 2023, when Miss Timmins was still in power, you could say, within the university. And I just like tell the anecdote of how I conducted this survey. I kind of woke up one day and figured it would be interesting to go around and ask people what they thought the executive or the president of the university should make, right? It was at a time where this was sort of in the news. Well, not just sort of, but it was circulating and people were talking about it because Miss Timmins at that time was, for the greater part at least, was under investigation for her allegations or claimed allegations on her ancestry. So I went around and started asking people actually downtown what they thought about the subject, and I rapidly realized that most people had no clue. So during that day, I slowly made my way up to the university, and on campus went on with the investigation, where I got more responses that were of more interest because people had thought about this a little bit more. So basically, I asked 65 people in all, 25 profs, 25 students, and 15 other people that were either citizens or staff at the uni, what they thought about this subject. Out of those 65, I got in all 48 answers, and 17 respondents were unsure or uncomfortable to answer or had no idea, which is perfectly legit, right? And that has to be taken into account in the sense that most people don't spend their time thinking about an issue like this, and it kind of maybe surprises them to be asked this question. A lot of the professors were kind of happy to be asked this question because they probably had thought about it a little bit or had been amongst their concerns. As for the students, they were a little bit surprised, but as I say, those 17 people that refrained from answering kind of indicate that there needs to be more debate for people that didn't think about this to sort of make themselves an idea about the topic. It's not very good English, but sorry for that last sentence, to have an opinion, an enlightened opinion on the topic. I did also, amongst those 48 people that did answer, once in a while they would tell me, like, I don't know, but I tell them what I'm looking for is your first take and your kind of like a gut feeling on the question, not a very researched or enlightened position, right? And so that has to be said to explain that this investigation of some sort was very exploratory. It doesn't have a very strong scientific value, but there's nonetheless an important observation that comes out from it, right? So amongst those 48, 36 respondents gave me three-quarters of the 48 basically gave me a numbered answer, right? So they gave me either like a money value, or they gave me sometimes a top and bottom value, so a ceiling and a floor, like where they would feel comfortable having situating the top pay of the president or the top executive of the university's pay. The averaged out, and that's kind of the main observation, right? And some people probably saw my signs around the university and wonder why I'm suggesting 8 times the minimum wage, which happens to be around $240, is that the averaged out response would be $240, right? So that proposal actually isn't mine, right? What that proposal would have having a maximum income for the top executive at the university at $240,000, or 8 times the minimum wage, is actually the university community's proposal. I'm not sure I totally agree with it, in the sense that I might go a little bit lower than that, but that's what the people basically told me at first take, right? And so what was the main, I can maybe detail a little bit about the responses. There was 36 people that gave me a numbered answer. There was also 12 people that gave me what you call a qualitative answer, or basically a relative answer of some sort. So they would say way less than now, right? they'd say not much more than faculty, or they'd say she surely is making like too much money for now, and so we leave, something significantly less, or stuff like that. And so those have to be taken into account too, but I can't factor them in the averaged out answer because there's no actual number. If I happen to maybe try to approximate what those answers would mean, it would probably lower a little bit, in my opinion, the total amount. Amongst the numbered answers, right? The top and bottom were like 100,000 up to 335,000. Right? This includes some top to bottom answers that I averaged out for that particular answer, and if you put all those answers together, like the vast majority are between those two amounts. And so the first observation that has to be made here is that even though this is a very exploratory survey on this topic, there's a significant disconnect between that average of 240 and reality. When I first conducted this research, or this investigation, right, I did not know what the total compensation was. Some people told me it was this, it was that. Some professors told me we think it's this or that. I myself didn't know, and I then did a second part of my research to determine what it was actually. And it took quite a bit of time because it's a bit confusing because of the manner in which the contract was built. So for now, I'll give you a number which is 550-ish. It's actually 550 plus. And just to, we'll come back to that in another presentation, but just to indicate that there's a very big disconnect between the first take of the university community's answer, which is 240 on average, and $550,000 per year. In the case of Ms. Timmons, it's actually much more than that because she got severance and it comes up to like something like 800,000 per year. But without the severance, it would have been equivalent of a contract worth 550 per year. So the first thing to note is that even though it's exploratory and it wasn't a random sample, even though there was not that many respondents, the disconnect is notable. What's also notable is that there's basically two answers that came close to something that might have been, and remember, like there's all these ifs here in my formulation of this sentence, to what maybe like $500,000 would be, in the sense that some people told me the average of the Q15, which are the top, one person told me that the top, or maybe two actually, the top universities in Canada, the money isn't part of those universities, so it's debatable whether the top executive in this university should earn as much as they do, but and averaging that out is complicated because those contracts are not very clear. And another person said, like, for example, depends on the person, so like it basically depends on what that person has to offer. So those answers are hard to factor in, and they might amount to something close to what is actually the pay of the top president, of the top executive, sorry. But for the vast majority of the answers, they're significantly far from that, right? Like the closest I'd have on the numbered answers is one young lady who told me between 100,000 and 500,000, but her top ceiling is close to what it is, but her averaged out answer is 300,000, right? So there's a significant disconnect, right? And that's why I felt as if, well, to be honest, I felt a bit useful in asking that question, in the sense that I felt that there was something in the community there that was, in the minds of the people, and that there's other people out there that had a totally different idea of what was a legitimate amount of pay for the top executive. I kind of did already insist on the fact that this survey had an exploratory value. I'll come back later on another mechanism that would be much more useful in another presentation, but I'll kind of introduce it here to determine what the top pay should be, right? And that mechanism is we can randomly pick a number of citizens and students and perhaps other staff at the university and ask them what they think the top pay should be, and but not just randomly pick them and ask them their superficial opinion, but have them deliberate about this issue and give us a final, more enlightened opinion on society about what they think, right? Because it's a complex issue, and you have to compare what other universities, what public servants, which the general audit did do. You have to compare with history somewhat. You have to use common sense, right? Even if other universities are paying a lot of money in some cases, doesn't mean we have to do the same here. You have to compare with size. You have to also take into account that this university is highly publicly. There's a lot of the proportion of public money it's receiving is very high compared to other universities. And if you compare it to other universities that have an equivalent, like a similar situation, there's also an extreme disconnect. Like I'm thinking about one university in Quebec where it's double the size, but where the top pay was around 250, so about pretty much what the people in this survey kind of told me, right? But this is to say there should be a broader debate on this subject, and I'm suggesting that it should be a citizens' debate with the students involved and also other members of the staff of this university. So we'll keep it at that for this presentation, and in the subsequent ones we'll get to how much actually the university president is paid, how well the administration hid or is hiding or was hiding how much that top pay was, how they disguised it in a certain way. And we'll also get to how we could organize an assembly like that to take an enlightened decision on this subject.